let's talk about the curse of the male feminist and the Neil Gaiman allegations. So, in case you missed it, this morning, Vulture, New York Magazine, dropped this article on Neil Gaiman, the author of Coraline, Good Omens, Sandman. As you guys know, we respect journalism on this page, so I will not be posting screenshots. It is by Lila Shapiro. It is an incredibly written article, but I will say I actually don't even think that I could post screenshots because the allegations are so dark and so heavy. I read it this morning and was just devastated and sick. Before I talk about the other two male feminists who have been revealed to be monsters recently, I will give a very, very high level overview of what this article says. Neil Gaiman became incredibly successful after the publishing of American Gods. He had written a couple of books or graphic novels before that, but American Gods was what made him a best-selling novelist and made him very, very, very wealthy. He broke into Hollywood with a couple of his adaptations and has just been riding the coattails of this success, right? One of the things that was powerful in the article that they mention is that in these fantasy spaces where he's writing, right? So Coraline and Sandman and these graphic novels, he has a lot of power because he understands people who are lonely or feel like losers or feel like they don't have anywhere else to go. So they find community through his work and they find him. One of the things that's hard to talk about is that in these fantasy spaces, Neil Gaiman was sort of revered as a god, right? He was known for his ability to write very, very powerful characters who felt lonely and weak and lost, and people who were, not powerful in their real lives sort of found themselves, right? It's a fantasy space. We've all been on the internet, the type of people who gravitate towards fantasy. And unfortunately, a lot of the people who gravitated towards this work were very young women, right? We're talking 18, 19, 20-year-old girls who found him, and he would create these relationships with them both through the internet and before the internet. He would write letters to them. He bought this one girl a webcam. It was just super dark and super spooky. One of the things that's really hard to talk about, because obviously I'm a man and he's a man, and I don't want to implicate a woman, but she's implicated. Amanda Palmer, his wife of the Dresden Dolls, I was a fan in high school. I'm embarrassed to admit that now. She was known for being the first person to reach $1 million on Kickstarter. She had a very successful Patreon. She is known for using unpaid labor, right? They tried to cancel her on Tumblr because she would ask people to play in her shows as guitarists or drummers, and she would just not pay them, and it would be a favor. So unfortunately, in the article, it was revealed that Amanda Palmer created this network of child labor, nannies and people to take care of their kids, and they would end up being prey for Neil Gaiman, right? She was sort of bringing women into the house. It was very, very, very dark. And again, I can't even say what he was doing to them. Literally on this app, I cannot say it. But you have to go read the article because it is very, obviously trigger warnings, but it is so, so, so sick. Lila Shapiro also wrote one of my favorite profiles of all time 3 years ago now, The Undoing of Joss Whedon, where if you are a Buffy fan, you know very much that Joss Whedon was the first male feminist, and he was I love strong female characters, and I love Buffy, and I love Faith, and I love Drusilla, and all of these characters, all of these women were incredibly, strong and successful and cool, and stuff came out about him sleeping with girls that worked on the show. He was rumored to have an affair with an actress who worked on the show. Nobody knows who. Just very, very, very intense accusations came out against him in the last couple of years, and he basically retreated from public life. And obviously Justin Baldoni, weaponized feminism his entire career, is now in very, very hot water for the revelation that he was using dark PR firms and Johnny Depp tactics to get the internet to turn against Blake Lively, right? And obviously the situation is tenuous, and they're suing each other and everyone is suing each other. It's very complicated. But even if it wasn't hard for him to get people to hate Blake, right? Because obviously Blake is not innocent. He still harassed her, and he still used all of this dark internet marketing to sway the opinion of other people, right? There were people who know about the plantation wedding, and there were people who didn't. There are people who know about other stuff about Blake, but at the end of the day, that doesn't really matter, where what he did was dark. And especially because he's a man who has a feminism podcast. He has a podcast about being a male feminist, and he was harassing his coworker. I don't understand why it is this specific type of man, and I think these two have more in common than Justin Baldoni, right? Who is attractive and is able to wield social power at a different level than Joss Whedon, who proclaims himself to be a nerd and like was very weird. This is all stuff that he's saying. I'm not dragging him, right? He was saying that he was a nerd and he was weird and he never got girls until he was like rich and famous. And then Neil Gaiman, who was using his power again, he was like, I was weird, I was shy. There's a lot of stuff in the article that I can't even say again, but like Neil Gaiman, who's like, oh, I'm so quiet, I'm so weird, I'm so shy. And then he was using his power to like create these relationships with very young girls and like it's bad. There needs to be like research done on this, but it is an epidemic. And basically, my final point of analysis would be that when you talk about misogyny and culture, you understand that it's about power, right? It's about domination, it's about domineering. And so these men rising to power and having these incredible sort of structures protecting them, right? The marriage of misogyny and capitalism is very intertwined. And when they are producing content and producing so much money for so many places, right? Because like Gaiman has adaptations everywhere. Joss Whedon wrote The Avengers. Like, this is big, 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 big money. There's vested interest in like protecting these guys. And so it enables them to sort of have these super inappropriate relationships with young women. It enables them to have these super like access to women. And it just like creates this like dark, fucked up tunnel of like access and weirdness, and like there is no boundary where when you are allowed to do whatever you want with no consequences, we see that, right? And it's sort of similar to the Diddy thing, who never proclaimed himself to be a feminist, obviously, but like again, when you have so much money and so much power and so much access, it enables people with these super dark tendencies to like act on them unbidden.